Have anything clever to say?
Just don't stick your dick in crazy, like I always tell you, Brooke.
Don't stick your dick in crazy.
We all know that you got to fix this. Everyone's like, what? All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Amos Joseph. I'm joined by my co-host, Brook Potter, who's in the UK, and this is the 10K Rum Podcast. How's it going, Brooke?
It's going great, Amos. Good to be back on the show. Been getting a lot of responses from our last show. A lot of fans, a lot of people appreciating the visuals.
Visuals.
Yeah. I actually got a lot of responses from listeners in Trinidad and Tobago who are on my WhatsApp and my Instagram because I did clips for both of those, and they were like, "Jesus Christ, that woman's breasts are like falling out of her top." And shit like that. And then I actually got other types of responses where women started sending me pictures of their breasts and be like, well, what do you think of my chest? And so it's been a very entertaining few days. So again, I'd like to thank Sulan and Violetta for making my week a lot more spicy. How are you doing, Amos?
Doing all right. Not much has been really going on over here. I mean, I know you were kind of filling me in on the responses we've been getting. We talked a little bit about the show. I know I didn't even I honestly haven't really checked up on it. I've been so busy. So did we get a lot of views? I think we did, right?
Last check, I think it was at least in the 40 views or something like that. I think this far in, that's kind of average. And I also pulled out the clip because, I mean, why not have some imagery of Sulan's assets, kind of sprawled across the front of the clip? So that might get some attention as well. But yeah, I think I've gotten some pretty good responses. So I'm glad. And again, I thank the ladies for coming on. And I guess they have an open invitation if ever they want to come and, bare their chest. I mean, have a conversation on the show. I think that'll be great.
It's all about having great conversations. Come on, Brooke.
Yes, and it doesn't hurt that they're easy on the eyes. Isn't that right, Amos?
Respect the women.
Respect women. All of them?
All of them. Exactly. Respect women is just it's a blanket statement,
Yes, but, yes. No matter how crazy, just all of them.
Yep.
What did you think of our two guests, Amos?
I thought it was very fun. I mean, I think it's the first time. Yeah, it's the first time we've had actually just two women. We've had like couple, like guy and girl and stuff, but we've never had just two women. So, yeah, I know it was fun. It was definitely helped pass the time better. That's for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, it was. I think we could have gone a little further. I think there was a lot of. I mean, granted, there was a lot of times where we kind of go on a lot of little tangents with the conversation, but we probably could have gone more with a lot of different topics, and definitely we'll have to have them on some point in the future.
Wrestling?
Maybe. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think they've kind of both expressed that they were really grateful. They loved the response, and it was a lot of fun for them. So I think, yeah, if ever we want to get them back on, they'll be happy to do that. And I'm probably gonna have to get like some decent equipment if I'm gonna start doing like these interviews with people in my office space. So anybody willing to chip in so that I could get a couple more mics and maybe a soundboard?
Yeah. Again, so since everyone who's joining us, we do have a Subscribe Star. They are, and Subscribe Star, very similar to Patreon, allows you to pledge monthly to our show. The tiers that we have are $1, $5, $10, and $25 tiers. The $5 tier, however, gives you access to our raw takes, which is basically where Brooke and myself, or with the case of last week, we had, excuse me, we had Jeff from the Asian Capitalist on, so he did a raw takes, but it was like 40 minutes long. Usually we do about 10, 20 minutes, but he and I went a little further. But it's basically where we kind of talk about more in-depth topics that we probably wouldn't usually talk about on a regular show.
Yes, all the
Not
drugs, sex, and rock and roll kind of thing. Right?
exactly.
Yes,
Just this
yes.
stuff that like we want to share, but like we want for people who are willing to kind of like pull a little extra to see what we're talking about. But there's a lot of good perks to the tiers. Of course, we'll be changing them as we get more subscribers in the future. But yeah, do check it out, guys. The link is below, and of course, for our podcast listeners, it is part of the notes below for the podcast. So, anyways, so what's been
Speaking
going
of
on?
women,
Exactly. Speaking of women, you were getting
yeah.
it. Oh, what were you saying?
No, I was going to say, well, two things. I was going to ask anything going on in your exotic love life that you could share publicly.
My exotic love life. No, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Player, man, you're taking a break from all the vagine.
Right. No, I've been with I guess the proper term would be I don't know, they call I don't like the term, but it best describes like kind of the thing right now is monk mode, they call it, I guess.
Right.
And
Are you monking out pretty hard?
exactly, I'm gonna shave my head soon. For the listeners and the viewers, monk mode is basically, I guess, in red pill, it's just kind of a period. It's kind of a glorified term, I'd say, but it's just a period where guys will just focus on, kind of getting stuff straightened out. Let's say whether it's financials, work, also where they kind of, really get into working out. Just kind of real, like it's like a short-term MGTOW. I mean, it's just guys that are basically focusing on purely themselves and their situation for a period of time before they go back out to, seeking out a woman or something.
Okay.
So they call it monk mode, and I don't like that term. It's just kind of like, sounds all spiritual and stuff, but most guys is just like, oh, I'm just not going to go out for a few days or something. Well, not a few days. Usually it's for guys like a few months.
Right.
Some guys will go even as long as a year, but that's a little crazy for me.
Sure.
Right now the goal is to just focus on what what's going on with my job, my life, and of course my health and stuff. So
right. How is the health going? You're looking a little trimmer? Have you been hitting the gym?
No. So if anyone wants to check up on our raw takes, I think it's our first episode of the raw takes. It explains, let's just say, some changes that happened as a result of a very interesting experience.
Oh, I don't even think I've heard this as yet. So
no. We talked about.
I know we talked about the experience, but I didn't know what the after effects were. If you're attributing that to your
Oh
current
yeah, I
health.
mean, there's that, and then there's just that's sort of like led to changes in like diet and stuff.
Really?
Not necessarily if I'm like eating like super healthy or anything, but it's just caused me to not like, that's not a focus. We could go into that in our raw takes today.
We can. I was actually going to suggest as much. So anybody wants to know, feel free to subscribe to the Subscribe Star and get the raw takes on what has changed in Amos's eating habits. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So, anyways, what's been going on in the UK, Brooke?
Oh, all hell has broken loose out here. I mean, it's absolute anarchy with the Brexit situation. Our Prime Minister Bojo, he's trying to outflank all of the communists in the Parliament, and he's done something which is called the prorogation of Parliament, which is basically where they end the political session of Parliament. There are a number of conferences where the MPs will go and they'll be informed on whatever the latest policy information is on drugs and diet and all these different committees. And then the Queen has issued a speech, largely ceremonial. It's written by the House of Commons, and they basically set the legislative agenda for the next period. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's longer than that. Now, why this is so controversial is that Bojo has basically suspended Parliament from, I believe, the Monday just gone, and he doesn't start it back until after October the 30th. And why that date is important, of course, is that is the date. Oh, I guess it's October 31st. Is there a 31st in October? I can't remember.
I believe so.
Yeah, so maybe it's the last day in October. That's the day when we leave the EU. The UK, come, you know, whatever might come, Bojo has promised we leave on the 31st of October, right, with a deal or without a deal. And in this period, which is, you know, half of September plus, you know, the month of October, which is conference season, there's no debate, there's no legislative session, there's nothing. So they can't really do anything to kind of fuck it up, to keep the no deal Brexit or us leaving in any capacity. So of course, all the leftists have lost their shit, and in a pretty much an attempted coup, a number of MPs in the House of Commons passed a piece of legislation basically saying that a no deal Brexit has to be off the table. That if the time period comes on October 31st and there's no trade agreement or a transition agreement with the EU, by law, Bojo has to go back and basically grovel to the EU for more time. And he's kind of, that is the law. It went up to the House of Lords and it passed back to the Commons. The Queen has given her assent. That is the law of the land. And he's already kind of declared that he's going to defy this law because there is no point for a delay. So his response to that, of course, was to call the general elections. Like, all right, well, let's do a vote to get a general election before the date. If these people want to dictate the pace of the Brexit negotiation, let them try and get into government. And they denied him. The first opposition party in the history of the UK to not vote in favor of a general election.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They abstained. Most of the opposition, well, the Conservatives are in power and the Labour Party is the opposition. So that's like the Republicans are in power and the Democrats for our American listeners. And they just flat out refused to vote, even though they've been begging and screaming for a general election for the last, I don't know, a couple months, actually. So it's a standstill. We're kind of coming down to time. Mm-hmm. Boris says that he's making progress with some kind of deal. The left-wing media out here is basically completely losing their shit. The Scottish court, as of yesterday, has declared that the prorogation was illegal. Now, again, Scotland is basically considered a different country, even though it's all part of the United Kingdom. A court in England said, no, of course, this is very normal. This happens every legislative session. Even John Majors, which was a former prime minister, he prorogated Parliament for a much longer period over a different issue. So the people took it to court here in England. It was fine. They appealed it in Scotland. Scotland said it's illegal. It's coming back to the Supreme Court here. And they're basically going to be like, well, you know, Scotland, don't fucking try to tell the English what to do, right? And it's going to be upheld. But it's one thing that I did hear, it's kind of a way that Boris Johnson could kind of get out of the present legislation, the present law, would be for him to revoke the leave agreement. So for us, that's Article 50. You trigger Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, with, you know, and that's what allows you to leave the EU. He could basically revoke that, and that will basically cancel out the legislation regarding, you know, he can't go with a no deal because you know you're revoking it. Then call a general election, hopefully win some kind of majority, and then just reinstate Article 50, right? And basically said, all right, we passed this law, we're backing out, and we leave like the day after, because you don't have to have the extension for 2 years and stuff like that. So there are a lot of interesting theories about how this is going to play out, but it is so exciting. In fact, people in the UK have stopped watching so much Netflix so they could actually watch the House of Commons and all the shit that's going on in there, you know?
All I've been seeing is a lot of these memes of like the distant future, and it's like, and the UK is still trying to leave.
It's still trying to leave.
It was like the year is, 23 something, the
We're part
Starship,
of the United Federation of Planets, and
the Starship Enterprise has made first contact with the Klingons or something crazy, and it's just like, and and the UK is still trying to leave the EU. It's like, what the
Yeah.
or
No,
you know,
it's bad. It's bad. It's really bad.
yeah. I mean, how this started in 2017? When did you guys?
No,
Okay, when was
2016. It was the
that?
same
Was
year that Trump was elected. So
the referendum?
The referendum was in 2016. Yeah, I wasn't here. I could not vote. I was in Trinidad. I was a British citizen, but I've never been on the voter rolls in the UK, so I couldn't vote. But I would have voted Brexit. So it's been 2+ years since. Yeah, it's been like almost 3. and I mean, there's when the referendum was announced, it basically, David Cameron at the time, he was the prime minister with the Conservatives, and he basically said, look, this is a once in a lifetime vote, and if we're out of everything. The ECJ, which is the European Court of Justice, the single market, everything, like we clean break. And he said it is up to the people to decide. And all right, so we had the referendum. Granted, slim majority. I think it was like 52-48 or something along those lines.
Right.
And he resigned, which was the right thing for him to do. The Brexits, the hard Brexiteers couldn't quite muster it all together, and we ended up with Theresa May, which was the compromise candidate and stuff like that. Anyway, we know the story of what transpired with that whole thing. But when they made the announcement, they did say they would implement what the people wanted. And when the results came out, there was a lawsuit basically suggesting that, well, fuck the people. Parliament is going to take control of this entire thing. And they've introduced this concept called the national interest, which is ironic because I thought the national interest was decided in the referendum results, right? But the politicians are now using the national interest to say, well, we need to protect jobs and we need to, keep from crashing out, and, it's all going to go to shit, and, the whole continent's going to break apart and all this other nonsense. But they didn't give a shit about that when we got into this thing, right? There was no referendum. They did it kind of, backhandedly. They destroyed the fishing industry in our country. They didn't care about jobs. None of that. And now they're trying to play the moral high ground, like, oh, we have to protect the jobs and national. It's all fucking bullshit at the end of the day. So it is entertaining. I do say that. It's coming down to the wire. Watching the screeching leftists is always a fun time. In fact, somebody actually recorded a bunch of Labour politicians singing, the red flag, which is the communist anthem or socialist anthem. They recorded a group of them singing that in chorus in the House of Commons. Which is rather frightening. So I do hope an election is coming. I hope the Brexit Party and the Conservatives come to some kind of agreement not to split Brexit vote and let in the worst forces. And let's just get this fucking thing done.
Is a distant future, and global warming has taken over the planet. And you can still try to leave,
Still trying to leave the EU.
10,000 years into the future.
I mean, it really is like that. It is everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong, and basically Parliament can't agree on anything, right? It's basically a hung Parliament. They tried to pass Theresa May's surrender agreement. Nobody voted for it. Well, she put that up 3 times and it got voted down 3 times. And then they tried to renegotiate and say, well, let's have a permanent customs union with the EU. That didn't pass. She put up like a non-binding vote, like, okay, well, what do you want? Here are all the options. There were like 7 options of what. Nothing passed. So basically, there's nothing is going to happen with this Parliament. This Parliament has to change. That's what it comes down to.
Which is why Bojo's stepped in to pretty much suspend your Parliament to just get it out there, just get it done.
Yeah, I think his original plan was to suspend it. And I mean, he left a week and a half for them to do debates and kind of wrap up their business and whatever had to be done. And a lot of people suspect the God Emperor Donald Trump is probably advising him on what to do with this thing. I mean, there's no evidence really, but it's nice speculation. So his plan was give them a week and a half, let them bicker amongst themselves. then prorogate, close the parliamentary session until after the October the 31st. And by default, the default position of the UK is we leave without a deal. And that's pretty, we just would have coasted into that. He did not foresee them passing this last minute legislation. Even members of his own party, I think 21 members of the Conservative Party voted in line with the opposition to pass this piece of legislation. And the next day he removed the whip, basically their legislative ability. They can't vote on anything else. And they've been kicked out of the party, basically. Ballsy, very, very ballsy. And we are very grateful that, we finally have a prime minister with some balls, right? And he didn't foresee it. So we're going to have to see how he handles it and what comes out of it. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Fucking Brits.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as entertaining as watching the Ugandan parliament, but it's pretty fucking close.
Nah, dude, Taiwanese parliament.
Oh, Taiwanese. Yeah. That's some UFC next level shit there, man. Hassan Chop,
Yeah, they will literally fights. So if anyone is interested, definitely go watch Taiwanese parliament. If anyone remembers the Cat in the Hat live action movie, was it with
was that Jim Carrey did the Cat in the Hat? Mike Myers, that's right. Yeah, I knew it was
so he was playing the Cat in the Hat. So part of them, I mean, granted, they had to obviously expand on the book itself to make it a feature-length movie. But there's the part where they bring over a babysitter to watch the two kids, and it's this woman, Mrs. Kwan. Mrs. Kwan was a Taiwanese woman, and she sits down and she just obviously watches the kids, and she's just watching TV, and she just pulls up TV, and then the kids are like, "Ah, Taiwanese parliament," and then it shows. Nowadays that's probably
riot.
Oh yeah, they're running at each other, and then she's like, you hear yelling at TV, "Yeah, you get him, this person, no more big government," or whatever. And then they're literally running full speed across the floor of parliament to tackle people and shit. And I'm just thinking nowadays, oh, you probably couldn't do that because they probably think that's racist or something.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of parliaments get spicy. I know the Ugandan one is known for the same kind of thing. It's probably not as graceful in the fights. The people get hit with the mace and just some crazy shit. But yeah, things do get spicy, and this is the irony. Of course, the UK Parliament is supposed to be the mother of all parliaments, right? A lot of these countries got the parliamentary system from the UK, and it's just an embarrassment. Absolute embarrassment of how these ministers are acting. Even out the Speaker of the House, John Burkow, he's such a Remainer. He does not want the EU to leave, and he drives around with a car basically saying bollocks to Brexit. And he's supposed to be impartial. He's supposed to speak the will of the House, but he decides what kind of legislation is allowed in, who can vote on what, and all this kind of stuff. And he's been just backpedaling to delay, to stall, keep no Brexit off the table, this, that, and the other, and whatever. And when they came to the prorogation, he did a speech in front of the Queen's Mason. I can't remember what the lady is called, but she's there to remove the mace from the House of Commons, basically kind of signaling the end of the parliamentary session. It's all symbolic stuff, right? And he did this big speech about how there is nothing constitutional or legal about this prorogation. And this is, he has to speak his mind for the people who are very concerned and all this other kind of nonsense. He's not supposed to do that. He's not supposed to speak these types of things. So it was quite disgraceful, what he had done. And it apparently, I mean, I didn't follow it after that, but he has offered to step down no later than October 31st. If they'd voted for an election, he would have stepped down sooner. But he's going to be there till October 31st. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, Brian, I agree with you. They need to dump Burkow. But fortunately, he's leaving. So although the prospect of who they'll replace him with might be even worse. But we'll see. What are you checking out there, Amos? Are you looking up the mace?
Yeah. No, we had a little bit of a freeze for some reason with StreamYard. I'm just double checking to make sure everything's working. But no, we're good.
Oh, okay, cool. So what's going on with the God Emperor and the expansion of the U.S. into Greenland? Is that moving forward?
No. All I heard about, of course, was the John Bolton resignation from Trump's, I guess, administration.
The cabinet.
Yeah. What was he, national?
So it would have been some kind of defense something. I don't know his full title.
I don't even remember. I mean, all I heard was he was, people are, the narrative is, oh, he wanted war. Trump didn't want war. So Trump kind of forced him to resign.
Right.
He didn't officially fire him, but I mean, with all of his remarks towards him, he pretty much made him resign. So there were a lot of
security advisor. That's his title.
A lot of spicy memes came about that. Babylon Bee did an article saying John Bolton leaves Trump to go back to the ocean and become a walrus. Lots of stuff. And then, of course, the talk again is Tulsi Gabbard becoming the new national security advisor because of her anti-war stance. So a lot of interesting stuff. I honestly don't follow that as much. Trump is, I hear about it because everyone else is talking about it. I remember, I think a lot of like pundits who were kind of on Trump's side, or at least if you want to say, speak of Trump in a more positive light, were pretty much on board with his decision. Except for Ben Shapiro.
Really?
Ben Shapiro did not like the decision.
Interesting. He must be very pro-Israel then, if that's the case.
You think?
Yeah, that's the only way that Shapiro would go along with that. So, and I think I get it as well. And I don't know how true it is. Not to raise a very controversial topic. John Bolton, as far as I understand, has always been kind of a war hawk and kind of looking out for the industrial military complex or whatever. He was very instrumental in the Iraq War, and I can't remember. I don't know if he didn't serve with Obama, but he was definitely there for Bush. He did some stuff in the United Nations and stuff like that. And I could see why, having somebody kind of push against some of the regimes like Iran and other things in the Middle East would appease a guy like Shapiro, so Ben Shapiro. So maybe that's what it is. I'll have to watch his clip and see what his commentary on the whole thing was.
Yeah, I saw that, and a lot of conservatives that I know of were kind of like, really, Ben, really, like you're gonna like be the one to kind of just, granted, yeah, of course he's very pro-Israel, so it's kind of like this weird thing.
Yeah, it's kind of well, as Brian is saying, he's more concerned about Israel in some respects than the United States, which is kind of, at least that's how it appears from.
Yeah. The way Ben Shapiro is, I kind of see it as like it's kind of one of those weird byproducts of political Zionism, I think.
Yes.
America. Yeah. Like there's nothing wrong with like supporting Jewish people and such. It's the whole political side of it that's become a bit of like this weird thing. Like we've talked about, like, and us, even for us as like former ministers, people will kind of think, oh, we're like, you'd think like we would be like very pro-Israel and stuff. And it's like,
not, I mean, I got in a lot of heat for that. Right, because I actually have a teaching on my Christian channel where I basically not debunk, but I share an interpretation that a lot of Christians and a lot of conservatives regarding Israel from a religious perspective would not like very much. And it was the premise that true replacement theology was not that the church had replaced Israel. True replacement theology was that Jesus Christ replaced natural Israel. And I share the parallels where a lot of the prophecies in the Old Testament that speak about national Israel, when Matthew would retell those stories, he would say, but this is talking about Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ was pulled out of Egypt, just like, the natural Jews were called out of Egypt. Jesus Christ was baptized in the water, and the heavens parted, similar to Moses coming out of it's parting the water and stuff like that. Jesus had his Sermon on the Mount, which was similar to Moses coming down the mountain with the Sermon on the Mount. And then Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, which is symbolic of the 40 years of the exile with the Jews. So Jesus Christ was assuming the identity of Israel. He basically became the one that represented all. So all of the spiritual blessings and everything like that were promised to them were now wrapped up in him. He now has all of the blessing. And that's why, later on in Hebrews and so forth, it talks about, the root of Israel was cut off. Not that they can't be grafted back in, but it was done, for the sake of the Gentiles and stuff like that. So this whole thing about, the chosen people and, this is God's holy land and stuff like that, all of that, theologically isn't supported anymore, right?
It's kind of like the old covenant, isn't it? It's been fulfilled, It's done, you move on.
Yeah, exactly that. And the whole thing, yeah. I mean, we're going to get heat for that, right? We're going to get like a call from like the American-Israeli Pact or something, shutting us down.
Exactly. I mean, could that interpretation then be taken as far as to say, if America were to support technically, America, a Christian nation, as a lot of these Christians that we know of that are into this, technically we should just support everyone.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. I understand the cultural significance of Israel and all these other types of things because
true.
Yeah, sure. I get all of that. And I'm not saying that they're worthless and all this. No. They definitely have cultural significance and we respect all life and all that kind of stuff.
Everyone who is listening, we are not anti-Semites.
Exactly. I mean, I still consider myself Christian. I'm following a Jewish rabbi, which is Jesus and all that kind of good stuff. So,
oh boy.
And in fact, I'm like 2% Jewish, I think in my DNA thing. So I wouldn't be serving myself very well. But yeah, I mean, even the Apostle Paul said it. He said, look, there's no more Greek, nor Jew, no bond, no free, no male, no female. We're all one in Christ. So I think Corinthians wrote it as well in saying that he tore down the middle wall of separation between the Jews and the Gentiles, which was the law. And in the two of them, he created one new man. So there is, in God's view, there's no more distinction between Jew and Gentile spiritually, right? I mean, we discern it naturally. We can say, okay, somebody's of this bloodline, but the whole thing is done. The whole thing is wrapped up, at least theologically.
Yeah, and that's that's a separate thing too, and it kind of gets the problem with modern day Christianity is the political aspect. I think.
I agree.
I mean, there's plenty of religious problems, churches, buildings, extravagant Sunday services and whatnot. That's whatever, but the political aspect is we have to support. I mean, the hero worship of Trump, the warmongering, sort of aspects of it, and of course the somehow just unquestioned support for Israel as a nation. Yeah. It's like like I say, that's why the political aspect is a bit of a mess.
Yeah. And I mean, the US should support Israel because they are surrounded by enemies. It is a good ally in the region. So, their bases and strategic planning. So there are a lot of reasons to have close ties with Israel.
Strategically.
I agree. Strategically. I don't think there's anything against that. It doesn't give them, I don't think it'll be wise to completely shit on the Palestinians. That's where I disagree. Right. And a lot of conservatives tend to see it like that, Israel good, Palestine bad. I don't think that's a fair representation of it at all, especially for.
I know some people in Israel that have talked about the Palestinian situation, and it seems to be pretty bad because anytime the Israeli government offers any sort of aid or infrastructure to the Palestinians to kind of like give them the means to sort of dig them, well, get out of the situation and the poverty, the destitution and such, to become a better area. I mean, it's a whole plot of land that's just completely just overrun with a lot of poverty, and
Yeah.
so they give them the means. So what they did, I think there was one, and I read this has really happened. The Israelis basically built a series of greenhouses where the Palestinians could grow food.
Yes.
And then after a while, the Israelis started checking in on these greenhouses, see how they're doing. They were growing the food, but they were also growing tunnels.
Oh, really? Using them
to get into Israel to plot terrorist attacks.
Yeah.
I'm not
entirely surprised by that.
So then so then there's like this, granted, hashtag not all, but seems like the majority position in Palestine is very much to just like keep doing what they're doing. And anytime the Israelis offer a hand and help, it kind of just goes south. It's always taken for granted, and they use it to kind of like plot another attack, and it's like, come on. So it's a very unstable situation, and
I mean, a lot of that comes from the leadership. I think I can't remember. The PLO, I think, is in power in Palestine. I haven't followed this in a long time, but it's not to say that Israel hasn't done their fair share of shit as well with the settlements. It's one of these guys was doing a commentary once. If Israel is building a wall of separation between Palestine and Israel, and the guy basically said it like this, that, if your neighbor is building a wall, you would expect him to put it on his boundary. But if the wall suddenly extends into your property around your garage and your pool, you might have some issue with that. And that is kind of what's going on with Israel. They're building these walls that well protrude into the Palestinian territory. And it's taking, water, it's taking resources and all these different types of things. So it's not even respecting what would be considered the international border. So there's a lot of tension. I'm no expert on any of this. The only thing I'll speak to is the Jewish worship and they're the God's chosen people and stuff. It's not as clearly defined in scripture as a lot of people would think. Yeah, Brian raises a great question there, Amos. What's going on with your wall?
Yeah. I honestly don't follow. Like I said, I don't follow Trump as much as I thought. I mean, he's just good for the memes. He's good for the funny stories, the crazy comments he makes. It's just entertaining. The wall. Yes. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, I would say for him politically, it would be a win for him if he gets the wall built before the end of his second term.
I mean, he did get some funding for the wall, if I'm not mistaken.
He's got something going for it, but I mean, the now that he's moving it, I mean, we're in 2019 right now. Coming to the end of it pretty soon.
Yeah. By next year, February, he's in full campaign mode, so he's not going to get much done.
Yeah, and so you got your Ann Coulter that I remember early on. She was doing the whole, day this of the Trump presidency, amount of wall built, 0. More updates tomorrow.
Yeah.
So she's making a good point, but I think, realistically, if he gets it done by the end of his second term, that's a win for him.
I agree. As much as I think the wall is a needed incentive, he's actually had another win in the Supreme Court, which was interesting. And again, I'm not really following it, but this did cross my feed, where the Supreme Court has removed the criteria for asylum seekers who have passed through other peaceful countries to try and get to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have Africans flying to Brazil and then making the trail up to the US border and then screaming, "We want asylum." And basically they're saying you had to pass through Brazil, Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, all the way up from South America. Many of these countries have offered you asylum and jobs. Like Mexico was saying, yeah, we'll take them. We'll take the workers. We'll give them jobs. And they flat out refused. Why is America suddenly on the hook for these people? And the Supreme Court actually upheld it and be like, no. As an asylum seeker has to be coming from a place where they're in immediate permanent danger and they claim asylum in the first free country that they land in, not this chainmail nonsense that's going on. So you're not going to hear much about that, but that's actually a pretty big win. That cuts out a lot of these caravans and stuff like that from getting asylum.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is this whole immigrant thing is so weird too. Just people trying to get like, I mean, there's the failure in logic when the left tries to say, you know, we're this racist, intolerant country that, you know, hates immigrants, when, you know, the distinction is, no, we just don't like when they illegally come in here. Legal immigrants, fine, do your thing. Illegal immigrants, no. And then it's like, but on the other hand, if America was such a horrible place in the world,
why are all these people coming here?
Why are people even, you know, just skipping all these other countries that objectively, you know, have their problems too, that are just to get here? Well, because of the opportunities, because of how, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's, we talk, every time we talk about this, it's just, there's way too many nuances to the issue. And you're not going to get down to just the basic, you know, America's good or bad, or the, you know, wall bad, immigrants good, you know, human trafficking, without taking into account human trafficking, drug trafficking. Was it like 2/3 of all women that cross that border illegally are raped?
Yeah. On the way, yes, true. Some very young girls. But I heard that I think in California now they're actually having an outbreak of leprosy, because again, a lot of the illegal immigrants have, you know, they don't have access to the medical care, they're not immunized, all these other types of things. I don't know if that's true. I think I read that somewhere. But I could say that in the UK we have that problem here. Like we don't have the numbers of the US, but we are a small island, and I think we let in like 500,000 people a year.
Oh jeez.
So that's you know, it's pretty substantial. And a lot of them coming from third world countries, and it's nationalized healthcare, and you got to vaccinate and, you know, treat all of these people coming into the country. And it is a real strain. And we've had rise of some very, you know, medieval diseases coming into the UK that, you know, should have been sorted. But yeah, that's what's going on.
Yeah, you can't help but think at times like you just want to like throw down build a wall. Like
build a wall.
All the diseases and stuff. It's like yeah.
I mean, it is a risk. It is a risk. And even the thing with in the US, at least, if you want to claim asylum, you have to go to a registered port of entry. You can't show up at the border and claim asylum. You have to go to either through a port or an airport or whatever the case is. That is also a criteria for claiming asylum in the US. So I have a friend who left Trinidad and Tobago and he came here. He actually has like scars on his face where somebody poured acid on his face in Trinidad. So he was, you know, stuff like that. So that was kind of, I guess, the grounds on which he claimed asylum. Basically, you know, he paid for his life. And he flew up on a ticket. He didn't have a visa. I think he had his passport. That was about it. And he claimed asylum when he got here. And to the best of my knowledge, he's still here. I think they gave him like a permanent residency card or whatever the case is. And I think he got married. I think he's about to have a kid. But yeah, that if you're going to do this asylum thing, that's the way you have to do it. You have to do it legally by the book. And he kind of had grounds, as I said, you know, his life in Trinidad. I don't know if he was the threat, but, you know, it wasn't a good life. You know, he'd been attacked with the acid and all this other kind of stuff.
Right. But I wonder if there are any Americans that have tried to claim asylum elsewhere.
Oh, people give up their American citizenship all the time.
But I mean, to claim asylum in other countries, it's like, what are you doing here? I want to claim asylum because I fear for my life in America.
I know of one woman. Oh boy, I
I mean,
don't know her
renouncing
well.
citizenship is one thing, but I mean, claiming asylum in another country.
Yeah, I know one woman. I don't know if she claimed asylum. I think she moved back to, well, she was from Trinidad, lived in New York, and when all of the the police shootings and stuff like that was going on. I mean, she was so paranoid, she packed up her son and moved back to Trinidad and Tobago, and she basically claimed that, tried to, I don't know if she had citizenship or not, but she did it for fear that her black son was going to get shot from the US, and I believe that was part of her request, either to renew a citizenship or asylum. I can't remember which one, to be honest. And I had a conversation with her very briefly, but she's infected with the brain syphilis, and she thinks the police are like gunning down black men in the United States. I said, your son has a greater chance of getting shot in Trinidad and Tobago than in New York, right? And that's a statistical fact. You're right. People are, it's a fucking war zone down there a little bit. But now, leftist progressive brain syphilis, she swears, FEMA camps are going to come and take her away in the night in the US. That's the level of hysteria.
Wait, the FEMA camps aren't coming to get me? What?
I mean, I would love for somebody to explain the FEMA camp thing to me, how they're going to round up all these people and put them into these FEMA camps. To what ends? Like, you're going to imprison half the population to do what? Like, what does that do? What rich and powerful person benefits by locking up their customers?
You better hope that half the population is the one without the guns.
But yeah, I don't understand where these theories come from. Like, I had a conversation with, again, a mutual friend of ours from Northern Ireland. And at one point, he kind of mentioned that to me. He's like, oh, when they come and they round up the people and whatever, and they enslave the humanity. I was like, for what? Why would they want to enslave humanity? Like, if they enslaved every person out here, what do you think will happen to the economy? What do you think will happen to their wealth? You've enslaved your customers. Who's going to do anything? Like, it doesn't make sense. You destroy civilization if you do that. Who's going to do that? And even he's kind of like, yeah, when you think about it, it's really stupid.
I think we'll just say a certain a preacher that you and I attended. You were on a certain council with him at one point.
Ah, okay.
He had a school.
Yes, sure. I know who you're talking about.
Not the guy we both work with, but you spoke with this guy. Anyways, when he talked about there was like a video he did, something about conspiracies, like secret societies and global conspiracies and stuff, like the Illuminati and whatnot. He was trying to explain it from like a theological point, but also he just said logically, like, if these people, what if these people are predominantly like the rich and powerful, what would be the benefit of the rich and powerful for all these like end goals that apparently, these, secret societies have, if it's supposed to benefit them. So, excuse me. With all the different, you look at all these crazy things people think like the Illuminati or secret societies are going to do and all this, it's like, how would that really affect, how would that really benefit them?
Correct.
In the long run, does this benefit them by making money, by granting power, or what? I mean, so anything where it's going to be, if you're going to round people up if there's, even with the left, they'll kind of get into this. What about the government tyranny? So when they get into the whole thing of, oh, you don't need guns because the government has tanks and nukes. Well, when are they really going to use the tanks and nukes to kill the one person they need, which is taxpayers?
Yeah, exactly. To keep the whole system going. Yeah. Where do you think the power and the money comes from? It comes from this system. And you're telling me they're going to round up everybody and crash the system? I don't see it happening.
Yeah. You know, it's just the
Yeah.
incentives got to work both ways. You know,
Yeah.
they have to fulfill our incentives of having us, continue to buy stuff, continue to consume goods and services. And then the flip side, they got to keep providing that. They got to keep, of course, maintaining that they're not going to piss us off or, make us want to revolt.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, Brian, I see your comments there. I'm not sure I fully understand, the acts, who they're serving and the afterlife aspect. If you're using, secular government to round up people into FEMA camps, I'm not. It does. I don't see how that would work. But beyond that, the nukes and tanks question, talk to the Vietnamese.
Talk to the talk to the Revolutionary War, Americans
against the British.
I mean, granted, the scale the gap is a bit different, but it's still very much the same principle. If you have anything that could happen, where they're going to round up people or something, it's just not going to happen. It's just like there's going to be a point where it's like one group is going to be more motivated than the other.
Yeah.
I think the people who are fighting the tyranny are going to be way more motivated to keep fighting than the people who are being ordered to. And then there's that problem. You're not going to have like military or these whatever organizations. You're not going to have enough people that's really going to make much of a difference to actually like, oh, we're going to round up people. Like they're going to see people like people. Most Americans who are in service to their country in some one way, shape, or form has some understanding of like the importance of freedom and the people and all this stuff. Like you're not going to like order the army to go round up people. It's just not going to happen.
I don't see it happening. Not the U.S. Army. I can't see.
Well, really any branch of the military is going to realize, yeah, we're not going to do this. Some of them are going to be like, we're not going to do this.
Yeah, technically speaking, it's illegal for the U.S. Armed Forces to operate on U.S. soil. So it's going to be the Rangers. It's going to be, I guess police, whatever. And none of that makes sense. I don't, I don't know. Brian, maybe at some point you and I could have a conversation. I'd love to hear your theory on what you think is going to go on, but there's no win. There's nobody benefits from that. Basically, we go back to, fucking Aztecs with an emperor who's like all powerful with his gold and jewels and, and everybody else looks like a serf. Really, you just destroy civilization if you do that.
And civilization, the destruction of civilization is not really financially viable. Like if the rich and powerful are the rich and powerful, and like you literally take away one of the main ways they stay rich and powerful, quote unquote, our socialist friends out there.
Yeah, if you take away the money in the government, that's a loss.
Yeah. So
yeah, anyway. It's an interesting conversation. Yeah, Brian, we'll have a chat at some point. We'll see. Oh, this is apparently it's theological. So, well, we may disagree on the theology at some point because I'm not one of these dispensationalists that believes it's all going to go to shit and we're going to have a one world government. I don't think that's supported scripturally either, but we could have that conversation another time.
Right. What is this mandate of heaven? Do you know what that is?
No, I see the question. I don't know what the mandate of heaven is.
Oh boy, we're both in trouble. We don't know what the mandate of heaven is. All these, oh man, there's just so many things.
We can't know it all. Some of us we actually have jobs, we have to work for a living. We we're not making money off this podcast enough where we can just like sit and research shit all day.
Yeah, pretty soon we're gonna become like an Alex Jones ripoff or something. No,
Alex Jones light.
Exactly. Oh, okay. Here's a good one. Did you see Count Dankula's documentary that's coming out?
No, I did. I think I saw it posted, but I have not actually seen it or the trailer for it. So fill me in.
He did a 30-minute video describing it.
Yes.
So he, obviously it's the documentary's main focus is his Nazi pug video. Is it like kind of just examining like, is it, hate speech or whatever, So BBC, takes him and they're going around and they're like talking to him, and he goes out and has conversations with different people. He has a conversation with this one comedian, who, so they sit down and they have this conversation, and uh Count Dankula is just like talking to him about like the context and all this, and this guy is just obviously not getting it. I mean,
Who that? The comedian? Or
the comedian was basically, it was so heated, the guy actually had to get up and take a break for a few minutes because he was just getting too riled up.
right.
And it got to the point, he said, and it didn't show the whole thing because you gotta go watch it, but basically he was showing, it got to the point where basically like Dankula's like, just, this guy's not gonna get it. This guy just doesn't think. This guy's stupid. So he just starts like, the guy just kept going, basically calling him Nazi and all this stuff, to the point like Dankula just busts out laughing because of how stupid this whole conversation was going.
Right.
And he was laughing so hard that the guy just gave up and walked out.
Right. Right.
He also got to they interviewed this guy who runs a comedy club in London called the something Leopard. It's this comedy club that is only like, it's like an SJW comedy club.
Right.
No comedy about no homophobic, transphobic, racist.
Dave Chapelle would never be able to play there, kind of thing.
Ever.
Right. Or
Even
Bill Burr, for that matter.
And the shit that they have going on there is just stupid stuff. Like, it's basically, what, and then people, they respond to the question, well, what else is there to joke about except all this stuff? Well, if you live such a boring life, how, it's like, well, and then they showed like the stuff they've had there, and it's just people like, it's a lot of like modern art nonsense kind of thing.
Yeah.
Make weird noises, do all this stuff, and that's supposed to be funny, look like an idiot kind of thing. It's like shitty slapstick. So it's a 30-minute video that Dankula does on this, talking about the documentary, talking about the people he's talked to, and it's funny. Even this guy who runs the comedy club, they ask him, they said, well, have you seen the video? And he goes, no, I have no plans of seeing the video.
Right.
This documentary is about the video. They're interviewing a guy that hasn't seen the video. Here's what's funny. This guy has a cat, and so they're, obviously they're doing B-roll and stuff. They're showing film of him like at home, like just, his life. He's playing with his cat, and he goes, and guess what his cat's name is?
I don't know.
Trotsky.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So he's like, you want to gas the juice, Trotsky? And
did he say that?
He said that, and then we're all like, dude, fucking watch the video. Or at least heard of it somehow,
Yeah, of course. That's funny. I have to. So it was like a preview that he put out so far. The documentaries to be released.
He's basically he's criticizing it too, though. Like, it's coming out soon, but he's also like there's clips he's allowed to show to like show how he just, it's not making any sense. Like, a lot of people just. He was invited to go to this comedy club. Of course, he didn't want. He's not going. And then he really gets into this comedian he was debating.
Yeah.
Who really tried to like paint, like get Dankula to like admit he's a bad person. He's a racist. Excuse me. He's a Nazi. He even said straight to his face, those who are evil don't know they're evil.
Right. Yeah.
So then he cuts to, then he starts giving a little history on this guy. He goes, so I looked into this guy, looked at this comedian. He goes, he wants to lecture me and, being evil and whatnot. He goes, apparently there's this game show in the UK called like, something involving like where they like these golden balls or something where they have like, so at the end of the show,
Yeah.
it gets down to the 2 contestants and only one of them wins the money kind of thing.
Okay.
So what they'll do is, and it's supposed to be like this observation into human nature. So at the end, these 2 contestants have a little chat. They discuss like about the money, about their financial situation. It's somewhere around like 50 to 100,000 pounds, like winnings.
Yeah.
And so what they do is there's these different scenarios that could happen. So they pick a ball, and there's 2 balls. There's split or steal.
Okay.
So if both contestants pick split, they split the money. The show is over.
Right.
If they both choose steal, neither wins. The money just goes on to the next game.
Okay.
Both contestants go home,
empty-handed.
Yeah. If one of them picks steal and the other picks split,
yeah,
the person with that pick steal takes the money.
Okay.
So the conversation becomes to either are we going to try to trick the other, so I steal the money, or are we going to convince each other to split so that we both win and, hooray? Or are we both going to be just completely selfish and we both lose?
Right.
So this comedian guy, Golden Balls, is the show's name.
No,
so
I don't know
this comedian who was trying to convince Dankula he's evil and saying you're not evil, you don't know you're evil because whatever, like just because you say you're not a Nazi doesn't mean it's true, whatever, all this stuff. So he's on the show years ago, and there's this it's down to him and this woman.
Yeah.
Now this woman like legit has financial woes, debts, situations, expense, whatever. She can use the money.
Right.
So they have this conversation and she's like, I really need it. She's on TV, so she's trying to keep her composure, but she's like, I need it. And has this conversation with him and he goes, okay. Yeah. He's kind of giving this very manufactured like concern.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. She goes, she's like, so we'll split then. He goes, yeah. We'll split. And she's like, all right. So they grab their choice, and what they do is they cover it.
Yeah.
And the host obviously tells them, when they're ready, they reveal it. And you already know what he picked.
Right. He did steal.
He did steal. She did split, and he steals. And she just like, what is she gonna do? Beat the shit out of him on TV? No. But it's
right.
She needed it more than he did, way more than he did.
Okay.
And he just, granted, whatever, it's a game, but it's like at the same time, it was really showing him like the dude's a fucking prick.
Well, it could be manufactured as well. Women have been known to fabricate a story or two, but I understand the point you're making.
Here he is.
Pretty shitty.
he was like, and he just kind of like did the way you could look at the body language that he was really putting out there, and it was like the dude's pretty shitty person.
Yeah, to call the Count Dankula a Nazi and all this, you got to be fucking retarded, right? You don't know what you're talking about.
He openly admitted right away, like he's like, he goes, call me a Nazi, yeah, that's a bunch of shit. You want to call me a dick, yeah.
Yeah, he'll own up to that. But this is the whole thing. I'll definitely look out for it. I do enjoy Dankula's stuff, and that court case has set some very bad precedents in Scotland, which is probably why I'm not going to go to Scotland in a hurry. But I'll check it out, man. That should be an interesting thing. I think I may have seen that clip with the comedian, kind of chubby guy, dark hair. No, okay, well then it's something else I saw. But there was another one I saw with a guy, and he was giving him shit, and it was the same kind of thing. Oh, you're evil, you're all the names, all the isms and stuff like that. And Dankula's like, you're supposed to be a comedian. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? But I'll check it out.
Yeah, watch it. It was pretty good.
When does the actual documentary come out? Does he say?
Gotta look this up now.
Right.
Count Dankula documentary. Oh no! What? The Curious? No, not that. That's not it.
All right, we'll have to find it and see.
The Nazi Pug: Joke or Hate is the title.
Right.
Oh, it's already come out.
Okay, cool.
Okay. But yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty spicy.
Pretty spicy. I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that.
I mean, they reach out to like some of the most like left-leaning, like, you know, comedians in quotes.
Yeah.
And points out how like he said it's a good thing because it's going to show the public how absolutely mental these people are.
Yes.
We
should hope.
Yeah, that, you know, the screeching of the left is going to, I mean, because now it's become more mainstream, so then the people are going to start seeing more and more of this mainstreamed like leftism, SJW behavior, the mindset, and the hope, I guess, is that people would realize like more and more could see like, oh, this shit's crazy. Like,
yeah.
Because for the longest time when I talked about any of this stuff with anyone, it was always, oh, that's just, you know, the internet, or oh, that's just, you're thinking too much. You're talking, you know, oh, you're taking it too seriously. And it's like, now that it's mainstream,
yeah.
they'll be like, oh, this is crazy that's going on. Yeah, I knew about that years ago, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this is, I mean, did you see the Dave Chapelle comedy special?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Did you?
of course I did. The minute I heard the screeching sounds of leftists losing their shit, I was like, oh shit, I gotta watch this.
Right. It's pretty crazy what he had going on there. And I mean, the clip, the really, really good clip is the, you know, you hear, I'm going to do an impression of someone. The whole, you know, doesn't matter what you do in 10 to 20 years, because we're going to find you. We're going to take everything away from you. And then they're like, oh, Trump. He goes, no, that's you.
Spot on. That
and everyone's laughing. And of course, the whole thing is now, I'm seeing Bering did a video on what's her name, some trans activist that's been interviewed by the Young Turks.
Counterpoint.
Counterpoint.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, she that person.
Yes.
Keeps basically, oh, you know, trans jokes are hacky and homophobic jokes are hacky, and it's like, because it's always been done. And yet that entire room was still busting out laughing. It's like,
exactly.
And then, oh, they don't know what they're laughing at. Oh, so the people are dumb now. I just don't get how they're trying to define comedy. It's like either the jokes aren't funny, but the people are laughing. Then the people don't know what they're laughing at. But then, so you're saying the audience is stupid? Yeah. No, but audiences are supposed to be like these smarter people that don't appreciate hacky jokes. Well, obviously they do, and they don't give a shit as long as it's funny.
Exactly. Which is what the left can't handle.
So the logic doesn't pan out, and comedy is not about making people. It's, you know, comedy was always supposed to, I mean, it's the jester, it's the court jester. It's supposed to be able to say all the things that people in society weren't allowed to, or just didn't like talking about.
Correct. The jester was the only one who could make fun of the king. That's kind of the whole point, is you speak truth to power through comedy.
And comedians are always getting in trouble for what they say because they're always experimenting and pushing the bounds.
Exactly. I mean, what was the comedian that you had in the car once? Was it Tosh Point
Daniel something? Daniel Tosh.
Yeah, he had some pretty controversial stuff. Like, he had some rape jokes
like, so he got in trouble, but he didn't care. I mean, well, his whole thing was like, so he makes, you know, a rape joke, and this is what happened actually once in a special he was doing. So he makes a rape joke, And obviously some woman that kind of literally screams out, "Hey, you can't make rape jokes." And in that, he just straight up, like, just improv, just looked over at her and goes, "Wouldn't it be so funny if someone raped her right now?"
Right.
Whole crowd laughed, but then there was a little bit of like, whoa, like really, like, but he did
Yeah.
that, and it was just to like really just kind of spit in the face of like, fuck your PC, sensitivities. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna
Yeah.
make a
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
Early on, even like he made this joke where he was talking about like New York and stuff, and he goes, "Man, New York gets all the cool plane crashes." And
Oh shit. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, jeez. And I'm just like, and that was like one of the edgier jokes that I first heard of him. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
And he goes,
He's
okay, okay.
really pushing it. Yeah.
He goes, okay, okay. I don't really mean like coolest, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
That's fucking crazy.
he did this whole thing on how we should actually, on how we should actually thank Osama bin Laden for what he did for airports.
Oh, really? He did that?
Yeah, and he was like, well, so he goes into it and he goes, because, you remember like before 9/11, like we always had to, when you walk someone to the airport, like you would always like walk them all the way to the gate.
In the US, you could do that. Yeah. Not everywhere in the world did that.
But I mean, yeah, but in the US, you could do that. He goes, yeah, but, ever since the, 9/11 and all this, you could just, drive up to the curb, barely make a full stop, kick him out of the car, and you're out of there. Says, we should thank Osama.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Because you don't have to walk him there. It's all like pretty much anything from the security checkpoint on, you can't like go with him.
Yeah, you can't visit that past
Right,
that line.
right. So it was funny. He would really push the buttons on that. And yeah, I remember, and it's good. Brian's actually bringing up Michael Richards from Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You remember that one, right? That whole controversy.
Which one? I didn't know much of his stuff. No.
So I mean, so he was, he was Kramer on Seinfeld, kind of this like very crazy guy, whatever. And but he had a comedy background, so he did some stand up here and there. But he went to the Laugh Factory, which if you look up on YouTube, you always see a lot of famous comedians go to this.
Yeah.
Well, he went there and basically did a set, and let's just say it went real bad.
Right.
He somehow some heckler said something, who was a black guy, and he just started going on a complete tirade of like very just blatant racist comments. Right. He's a fucking N-word and just blah 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 blah. Just kept going. If you look it up, it's a really shitty cell phone video of him, but it's just him like blowing up.
Yeah.
And he even went on his Jerry Seinfeld actually brought him on to David Letterman through video conference call to like have him like apologize and really like.
Right.
But it was so weird because it was like one of the first major like in terms of social media, like one of the first like comedians that went out there said something really crazy. Social media, what was social media
at the time? Yeah. Crucified him.
Yeah, just so and I've heard comedians basically like the good ones will just basically say like, yeah, everyone wants to get on that and really, razz. I mean, yeah, there's, but most people will just say, yeah, just having a bad set. It's like the joke, like, because you do have those comedians that basically have a bad day.
Yeah.
And we'll go on, but they basically put it to that instead of just like, dude's freaking just one off. But yeah, comedy is supposed to push the limits. Have you ever heard of there's a lot of really touchy ones that I think, being someone like you and me that understand nuance and context and like certain jokes, you really just have to like, if you're used to thinking in a level of like, not to say, oh, we're super smart, but to be able to think in a context instead of taking things at face value. Like, if you like, if someone like is, dropping a word, we'll just say certain words that people don't like people saying, whether it's the N word or something, you drop that word and in a context where you're talking about it. Well, at face value, people, oh, you said the N word.
Yeah.
Go after you. But you were actually saying it in a context to, to make a point about something. Sure. Or is to joke about the word itself being such a weird word.
Or as lyrics to a song.
True. Right. So, thinking on that level is like what comedy is all about, getting people to think about things in different ways that are funny, not that the content of itself being funny, but the way it's being shown and talked about is funny.
Correct.
Thinking about the fact that you don't have to walk someone all the way to the gate, so if you ever like bang the chick that flew out to see you, you can just kick her off at the curb at the airport. Thanks to Osama bin Laden.
Edgy, but yeah, it's a good juxtaposition. So
it's the kind of it's where you take the mind to like. What's funny isn't so much like, I think comedy is really just like challenging how we think about things.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Nazi pug. It is taking the cute little animal
and making it this.
And making it into like the symbol of atrocity kind of thing,
Right. But it's not like we're necessarily giving a platform to the atrocity. It's to make that, to show that gap.
Correct.
That complete shift in mindset where you're going from, oh, cute pug to,
it's a Nazi pug.
Yeah. And it makes you laugh. You kind of go, it's just so ridiculous.
Yes.
And it's to show that, to help us to, like, I think, to better understand, like, in some ways, what is good, what is evil, what is, what is right, what is wrong in society, by bringing them together in a weird way that makes absolutely no sense except within the joke.
Correct. I agree with it. I mean, comedy is, I wish I could do comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful for the podcast because I get to be a little bit funny sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's a hard job, and I respect a comic that does it well. And I've seen some bombs, right? I've seen some people just like, this is fucking not funny.
Yeah.
What was it? Amos Schumer. I couldn't get through her special. There was another one. It's an American girl, and she like talked really fast for a second. It's like, this is very Texan, and it was kind of lost on me.
I don't know.
A blonde girl, pretty cute, but
female comedians are really tough to like.
I agree. The only ones that I thought were really good female comedians have all been Asian. So, what's her name? Wong Ali or
Ali Wong?
Ali Wong, yeah. She's very funny. Margaret Cho was funny before she became a lesbian. I haven't seen any of her post-lesbian skits. Right. But I mean, and she was doing racy humor about Asians.
Right. I mean, and then early Sarah Silverman was edgy.
But she was edgy, but I never got into Sarah Silverman.
She got onto a show called Politically Correct with Bill Maher.
Yes, I remember the show.
Freaking early 90s kind of stuff. And
she came dressed as.
No, she didn't. No, she came on just regular, but she was talking. What was it? She made some joke that was basically like, it's racist to say this, but then I said it to show that I'm not racist. Kind of like, she said, "Oh, I call my neighbor. I'm told I'm not supposed to call my neighbor a chink because that's racist, but." But I called him a chink anyways to show I'm not racist.
Yeah.
And she did that. It was something like that. You have to look up the actual context, but she kind of does that. And Bill Maher's like, he's not laughing, but he's just kind of like, okay, she goes, but the joke is not the racism. The joke is like that contrast. So she's trying to explain this, and they have on this, of course, this, Asian minority like oppressor group guy or whatever, and he's just like but what a lot, so it was like one of the small but like first times he started seeing like this kind of like making a racist joke was not okay in the 90s.
Yeah.
Granted, I mean, there's been that over time, but it's like nowadays it's like it's more mainstream.
Yes.
You can't make any joke about anything. But yeah, there was that, and I was like, okay, so she had her fair share of that. And I think recently she did something where she got caught up in cancel culture and stuff. Something she said recently that was like offensive too.
Who's that? Sarah Silverman?
Yes, there was some recent thing she got caught up in. Where she got canceled off something.
Oh yeah, I did see that, and I mean, to be fair, she created a big part of that culture,
and that's funny. That's how
that's funny,
and that's funny. I mean, even so like one thing. So what I wanted to get to with that whole thing with like how you think about things.
Yeah.
So like the Bin Laden and all this, but did you ever listen to Louis C.K. on Saturday Night Live? The monologue he did about the Klondike bar that completely went south. So
I don't think so.
You know what a Klondike bar is, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like an ice cream chocolate something, right?
Yeah, so it's ice cream in the middle, chocolate on the outside.
Chocolate on the outside.
So the commercial is always, what would you do for a Klondike bar? Kind of like you will do anything for a Klondike bar.
Right.
Because a Klondike bar like tastes really good. Like the marketing thing is, they always have someone doing something outrageous. And then it's like just for the Klondike bar. So what would you do for a Klondike bar?
Yeah.
He took that. It's just so good. And he goes, and he goes, but like if it were illegal, I would just stop eating Klondike bars.
Right.
And he goes, but could you? He goes, but they're so good. Like, so he goes, imagine child molesters.
Oh, jeez.
And he goes, it's illegal, but they're still doing it. He goes, so it must be really good. And he goes, and he like everyone like is about to like boom, and he goes, for them, from their point of view, like he's
he's hedging.
And he's like, he goes, because like it's illegal, but they're still doing it. Yeah. And then like they'll do that, they'll get in trouble, and then they do it again. And then he goes,
oh my God.
He goes, it's got to be really amazing for them. And then at the end, he goes, all right, we got through that. Let's move on to the next kind of thing.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I'm very grateful for Netflix and their comedy specials.
Basically, Jerry Seinfeld called what he was doing there, basically dancing on a bunch of laser beams. They called it.
Right.
Because he was basically dodging the whole, like, just barely getting into complete controversy, but not quite there, because he would like, hedge
He'd
it,
walk
like,
it back. Yeah.
For them, from their point of view, like.
No, absolutely. I think that's. I mean, did you see the Bill Burr special, the Paper Tiger?
I have not.
That's another good one. That's
right.
Yeah, because he really. I was hearing the beeping. I guess your headphones are.
Yeah, it's dying.
Yeah. He really shit on the Me Too movement, and he talked about. I think you saw maybe Entrepreneurs in Cars. Richard Cooper posted a clip of basically recording Bill Burr on the special. Like, that the Me Too movement has gone too far because it's created all of these male feminists. And they're like, oh, I've always championed women's rights. And he's like, no, you didn't. You did some shit. You like grabbed some titties or something. You're trying to hide something. You're a monster kind of shit, right? It's like nobody would actually, go against their own, gender unless they were really into some deep shit, So like he really got into it. And he did it in London. If I had known, I might have actually gone out to see his show. And he makes a comment. It's like, this whole Me Too thing is really getting out of hand. Like, what happens if the girl really likes rough sex? And the whole place gets quiet. And it's like, what? Here in jolly old England, y'all don't have that? Like, y'all are too good for that kind of thing? And then some guy from the audience screams out, you'd ask for consent. And he's like, bro, you did not hear what I said. You heard something completely different, right? And he does the bit where, you know, it's so risky to have sex now. I mean, it's a physical act that he does after that. He's like, all right, I'm just going to stand here like a fuck stick and you just back yourself into me as hard as you want. And I'm going to put my hand like right next to your butt cheek. And if you want to like hit your butt cheek into my hand, like spanking, you know, but I'm not actually going to move. I'm not going to do anything. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So if you get a chance, I'd highly recommend it. He shits all over this feminist and Me Too stuff.
I mean, I even got a little concerned. I mean, do you personally have concerns because of the Me Too thing?
Yes.
Because for us, for you and me, single guys, getting out there, meeting people and stuff, you don't know what's going to happen.
No, I've been with a woman not that long ago. I think I told you this story. You know, we're in the hotel room getting hot and heavy, and you know, clothes are starting to come off, and she literally says to me before she's completely naked, you know, I could call the cops on you right now and destroy your life. And you know, I just went limp. It was just like, holy shit. Like, why the fuck is that the first thing to come out of your house, you know, your mouth, you know? And like later on, you know, she realized she fucked up with that whole thing, because that's something I'm very aware of and very cautious about.
Did you tell her?
Well, I mean, I just totally shut off. I was like, well, if that's the case, I'm fucking done. And she realized,
got out of there.
Yeah, I was ready, like, you know, okay, well, this is going to be a platonic visit, you know? And another time that I think maybe the next day or whatever, we were still together and stuff like that. We got over that hurdle. And she made the mistake of saying, like, she had a couple drinks and she said, oh my God, I'm drunk. And I was like, holy shit, no. I just completely backed off. And again, she realized that she'd fucked up, and she's like, oh no, I know what's going on. It's okay. And she had to backpedal it. But yeah, this is fucking London, bro.
Yeah.
Heights of this shit going on out here.
I mean, I always like, because of, there is no statute of limitations on Me Too.
Yes.
I had a little bit of a concern.
Yeah.
With the person that that you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That I thought maybe she could have like said something, did something to kind of like make it look like that. And I was like,
yeah,
even though it's years after the fact.
Yeah.
I never did anything that was, you know, anything
not consensual.
Correct. Right. I never did anything even close. But Me Too has no limits.
Yeah.
So I thought about it for a bit. Obviously, it's years after. It's not going to happen. You know, for how many people that person's been with since then, it's probably not a problem. But it just, the fact that something like that, you know, I mean, granted, you know, I'll just, a little bit of self-deprecation here. For someone like me who hasn't been around with a lot of women, if I could be a little concerned of the few that I have been with.
Yeah, of course.
That's a problem. Like the social implications of Me Too are way too much. It's just
I agree.
No, like it's not about, you know, women coming forward. Yes, there is that. But it completely went past just women coming forward real quick. Like, it's not like, you know, it's not like, so there are movements out there that start real good and like, okay, like for a good couple years, like, hey, you know, this is helping people. This really is, you know, benefiting society. And then somewhere down the line, it gets a little crazy. Like feminism was like that. Feminism took a while before it is what it is. Me Too. Boom, just we're all screwed.
Yeah, it became a dumpster fire pretty fucking quick. I agree. You know, I agree. Yeah, so, I mean, I remember seeing when the whole Me Too thing was coming out, I had a lot of like women on my Facebook feed, and they would be like, "What's so difficult? Just don't rape, and you know, just don't do anything, and you'll be fine."
Yes, just don't do anything. Just don't do anything.
Lie. Yeah, no, it's bullshit. That's total bullshit, because and actually I just posted something on my Facebook very recently. A recent FBI investigation 40% of the rape cases are false. Not this 2% shit that they've been quoting. 40%.
Well, if you watch the Freedom Tunes, he did a video on that. So he said only 2% are confirmed false.
Right. I saw that video before, but recent study came out within the last couple weeks. Investigation, no less than 40% are verifiably false. So I agree with the Freedom Tunes assessment, but that means women are calling shit on men, and they haven't done anything. I don't know, fair enough. Maybe they can't prove it. Maybe something is actually and they can't prove it. I'll give the benefit of the doubt, but that's very risky. If 40% of the women out there can do that, well, not necessarily 40% of the women, but that's a big risk.
If there's nearly a 50, almost, granted, I'm not saying, but I mean, you're 10% away from 50-50, where it's like you might as well flip a coin and have better odds.
Yeah, it is that fucking crazy. And you don't, as you know, you don't actually have to do anything. I think like the woman that was accusing Brett Kavanaugh of his impropriety,
completely and totally debunked.
Completely and totally debunked. But you know what her lawyer said?
What?
There was recently some kind of feminist legal conference or whatever the fuck it was. And this woman stood up and said, basically, we're glad she did what she did, even though it's pretty apparent she fabricated it. Because when Kavanaugh takes a blade to Roe v. Wade, we'd know the kind of man that he is, and he will always have an asterisk next to his name or something along those lines. Basically admitting it's a political agenda, right? The whole testimony and stuff like that was a political agenda to try and stop any changes to Roe v. Wade. And she has no problem with that. Fabricating a testimony and putting a man's reputation on the line, totally justifiable as long as it agrees with her politics. And that is fucking scary.
Yeah. Jeez.
That is scary. It's the same shit when you see, oh yeah, vote for women because it's women. Why? Because you match genitalia? That's, this is the kind of stupid shit that we're putting up with. But yeah, there we go. Brian said the only solution is monk mode. I like women, Brian. That's That's
the difference. Is we're not going. Monk mode is a temporary thing to just kind of like get your stuff sorted before you go back out there. I mean, there's guys that I know that will still date during monk mode, but it's just monk mode is like more like,
yeah. I mean, they have MGTOW monk, which is, that's the end extreme of that, I suppose.
Yeah. That's my, like, I think for most MGTOW guys who are like just looking to like self-improvement and all this, like, I am with them all the way until the point where the conclusion's drawn about like sort of end goals of like life, like what they want to do. It's like, I mean, you and I would probably agree, like we want to like get married someday probably and have kids and have a family.
Yeah, the only reason to get married is to have kids. There really isn't any other point.
Yeah. And MGTOW won't go that far. That's like the one of the few things. And because of that, it kind of influences their it's not about it's and Brian makes a good point. Yes, it is about self-protection, and that's why it's like you start to you have to come up with you got to vet even more. You got to really like have an understanding, and then you start having you start taking legal steps to like make sure you're protected too.
You do know there's like a sex consent app on your phone. So like just before you get down and dirty, there's a little thing like I consent, and she has to tap it. And I think we get to tap it after, right? But yeah, no, that's the level of shit that we're putting up with right now. In fact, I know two guys that just had a vasectomy because they're just absolutely terrified that some woman is either gonna accuse them of something or get pregnant for them. Like, it's a fucking minefield for men out there in the dating world. But yeah, it's pretty bad.
Right.
Pretty bad. Prenups and postnups. Yeah. A friend of ours that we both know, very, very close to me, his wife is coming soon, got married without a prenup.
Yeah.
He's working on a postnup, but it's a little more pricey. But yeah. And even that's no guarantee. In the UK, prenups and postnups are taken under advisement, but they don't mean shit.
In the U.S., they're the prenup is always is I think from what I've heard, the prenup is easily thrown out. Whereas when you have the
if you have kids, it's thrown out pretty quick.
But if you have the postnup, doesn't that like make it even better?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. The prenup only lasts for a certain number of years, usually 7, which is usually why Trump would divorce his wife in 6. And it depends on if they're kids. If they're kids, they kind of ignore the prenup because they have to think of what's best for the children. And the postnup, I figure, is probably the same kind of thing.
Right. I mean, you could set it up. I'm sure there has to be some sort of legal way where, let's just say you have it set up where, like, okay, a clause for children. So you have children involved, and you say, okay, if there is a divorce and there are children, there will be there could be something, if you want to call like child support, but only for the children.
Doesn't exist as yet because it all goes to the mother. That's just the reality.
There's got to be some way you can control it where like she would take care of them, but the money doesn't go to her.
I would agree with that, but that would put the children in charge of their shopping and their other things, and that's not really responsible.
Well, no, there could be some way they would like audit that to say like she can only like buy their food and clothing. Anything where she's buying something strictly for her.
Mm-hmm. There's no way. There's no way.
Like if she decides she's going to go buy like a top of the line SUV that's really for her.
Yeah, yeah.
For the kids.
And I think we've seen that recently. One of these basketball players' ex-wives, the child support money is basically paying for her expensive vacations and Instagram booty shots and shit. There's no way. There's absolutely no way to monitor that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. Like when they do the Social Security, if there was a way to do it, Social Security, the welfare benefits in the US, they would have come up with a way to do it, and you would not be able to buy TVs and other shit with the welfare money, and they couldn't figure it out. As long as the welfare card was accepted at Walmart, people were buying all kind of shit, and there's just no way.
Yeah, once you cross that line into monitoring specific transactions and like receipts and stuff, is where people will start playing the privacy card.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, what it would take is every purchase. I mean, if I were to do it, my plan would be, okay, it's a special system where the husband has to approve the transaction. So like she goes to the shopping thing and she swipes the card, and he will be notified on his phone. Like these are the whatever the items that she's bought.
You sexist.
But you see, then he could be a dick and just be like, well, fuck, I'll cancel it all. Right. There really isn't a win in that scenario, which is the problem.
Or you have some sort of third party do it.
Yeah, but that's more costly, and that's like a trust, and you got to pay them. It's very expensive. So, I mean, put it out to the audience. If anybody has an idea on some kind of app or something that could help some guys out. I mean, that's why I'm totally for financial abortion, right? Where the father has a certain amount of time to opt out of being the child's provider. Oh God, this fucking guy on a motorcycle. Yeah. I think, if the woman gets the right to choose whether to have the child or not, I think it's only fair to give the father the right, whether he wants to financially, to support the child or not.
Right.
And I think didn't Dave Chapelle put that on his special as well? I think he mentioned that as well. I mean, I've been advocating for that for years, and people could go back to.
He's like, if she's gonna have the right to kill it, I might as well have the right to abandon it.
Exactly. And I think that would solve a lot of these issues. But like out here in the UK, I was having this conversation with a work colleague here. Somebody she knows got a girl pregnant, and she wanted a child because she gets a council house and she gets an allowance, and all of this is covered by the state and whatever. And she said, I don't want the father to have anything to do with the kid and whatever. But the minute she applies for the council house and everything else, they demand that she gets child support payments from the father. which was not part of the agreement. But she ended up squeezing the man for money regardless. Right? Because that's the law. That's just how it fucking goes. So
all right. Now that we got through all that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really rough for guys out there. And Brian, I see your question, your statement. It doesn't make any sense to get married. Yeah, I agree with that. Doesn't mean that, you know, we can't hope. And maybe if, as a friend of mine said, if you're going to get married, do not get married in the West. Go out to Asia, go out to Russia, Eastern Europe, and you do not fucking return to the motherland under no circumstances.
Right.
There's still hope out in the land of the rising sun, apparently. So,
all right. Well, we're coming up on our time here. So, anything quick you want to add, Brooke, before we head out?
No. I think we've kind of covered the gauntlet. And anybody listening, definitely check out those two specials, Chapelle and Bill Burr.
Sticks and Stones is Chapelle's special, and then Paper Tiger
is Bill Burr. Yeah, definitely.
It's funny how both of those titles are very fitting.
Oh, I agree.
But anyways, so yeah, of course, everyone, do leave a comment below on if you like the show, like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to us, of course, on all of the podcasting platforms as well.
Yeah, we got a couple of viewers here. Could you guys just like hit the like button? You know, it really does help us out.
Yes. Yeah. And then, of course, subscribe to the podcast is mainly on Apple Podcasts and Google Play. I think there's a couple other ones you can find us as well, but it's primarily through Podbean. And of course, check out our Subscribe Star for the different perks that you have for subscribing to the show. We're going to go over here after this to do our Raw Takes number 3. We're going to talk about a couple different things that basically you got to pay to see. So thank you for joining us, of course. We will see you guys on Sunday.
Yes. Thanks for watching, everyone.